You're watching ZK Auto Reviews, and today, we're diving into the world of steel giants, turning the clock back to a time when thunder rolled not just in the sky, but across the battlefield on tracks. This is the story of a tank that might not have the sleek lines or modern firepower of today's monsters, but it earned its place in history through grit, adaptability, and sheer determination. The M3 Lee. Now, let me take you back to 1940. The world was at war, and the battlefield was evolving at a pace never seen before. Armored warfare was reshaping military doctrine, and the United States found itself in desperate need of a medium tank that could go toe-to-toe with German panzers. At that time, America didn't yet have a fully developed turreted tank capable of housing a high-velocity gun. But time waits for no one, and so, from this urgency, the M3 Lee was born. Imagine the moment. American engineers sitting at their drafting tables facing immense pressure. The Army needed firepower, mobility, and protection. Yesterday. And so, the M3 was designed not as a perfect solution, but as a stopgap, a temporary answer until something better could come along. But what a stopgap it turned out to be. The M3 Lee, named after Confederate General Robert E. Lee, was an unusual-looking beast. It stood tall, almost awkwardly so, with a riveted hull and a combination of main armaments that turned heads and raised eyebrows. Its primary weapon, a 75mm gun, wasn't in a traditional turret. It was mounted on the right side of the hull in a sponson, much like the older World War I tanks. Above that, a small rotating turret housed a 37mm cannon, giving the tank its distinctive dual-gun silhouette. It looked like a hybrid between the old world and the new, a compromise forged in the fire of necessity. On the surface, some scoffed at its design. Critics pointed to its tall profile and limited gun traverse as weaknesses, but those who used it in battle, especially the British in North Africa, knew the truth. The M3 Lee brought something desperately needed to the table, a gun that could punch through enemy armor at a time when many Allied tanks still couldn't. In 1941, the British were reeling in the deserts of North Africa. Facing off against the formidable German Panzer III and I-Fu, they needed something that could deliver a decisive blow. Enter the M3 Lee. It arrived like a thunderclap. While the tank's height made it an easy target, its firepower more than compensated. The 75mm gun could fire high-explosive rounds with authority, devastating enemy anti-tank guns, infantry positions, and even German armor. What's more, the M3's mechanical reliability was a breath of fresh air. In the brutal heat of the desert, tanks needed to keep moving, and the M3 did just that. Its Wright R975 radial gasoline engine, the same kind used in aircraft, gave it a surprising burst of power. It wasn't the fastest or the stealthiest, but it kept going, mile after mile, battle after battle. Inside, the crew of 7 had a unique experience. The layout wasn't exactly cozy, cramped in places with each crew member manning a specific task, but it was functional. Communication between the crew was vital, especially with multiple guns to operate and coordinate. This teamwork became the soul of the M3. A machine powered not just by fuel and fire, but by the men who breathed life into it. Let's not forget the armor. The M3 was well protected for its time. It could withstand hits from many German weapons, at least from the front. The sloped armor wasn't a standard yet, but the sheer thickness of its plates gave it a fighting chance in many engagements. And while its high profile made it visible, it also gave the tank commander better visibility of the battlefield, a small but vital tactical advantage. Perhaps one of the most fascinating chapters in the M3's story is its transformation. When the British got their hands on it, they modified the design, resulting in the Grant variant, named after Union General Ulysses S. Grant, a nod to American Civil War history. This version removed the cupola atop the turret and altered the radio configuration to better fit British combat doctrine. These small changes made a world of difference in the field, and once again, the M3 proved it could adapt to whatever the Allies needed. Let's not sugarcoat it. The M3 Lee wasn't perfect. It was a temporary measure, and it knew its place. But even so, it stood firm when it was needed most. The tank played a critical role in the early stages of the war, buying precious time for the development of more advanced designs like the M4 Sherman. And that's the beauty of the M3. It knew it wasn't the hero, but it carried the weight until the hero could arrive. And there are so many stories buried in the desert sands and jungle trails where the M3 rumbled through. In the jungles of the Pacific, the M3's firepower came in handy for bunker-busting roles against entrenched Japanese forces. Though the terrain was tough and the M3 not ideally suited for such environments, it still played a role, showcasing its versatility once again. Even the Soviet Union received hundreds of M3s under the Lend-Lease program. Though they were less enthusiastic about the tank due to its profile and layout, it still found use on the Eastern Front, particularly in secondary roles. That's the kind of legacy the M3 Lee left behind. Not a tank of glory, but a workhorse, a reliable tool that stood up when the world needed steel and resolve. What's more, the M3 taught valuable lessons to tank designers around the globe. It showed that firepower matters, that mechanical reliability can win battles, and that a tank doesn't have to be perfect to make a difference. Its flaws became stepping stones, its successes the foundation for the next generation. Today, when you see an M3 Lee sitting in a museum, don't just walk past it as a relic of a bygone era. Stand still for a moment. Imagine the roar of its engine, the clatter of its tracks, the coordinated shouts of its crew. This tank was a bridge between two worlds, between the early concepts of armored warfare and the more refined doctrine that followed. It was an answer to a desperate question, and it delivered. Here at ZK Auto Reviews, we salute the unsung heroes of armored history, and the M3 Lee is certainly one of them. It might not have the fame of the Sherman or the menace of the Tiger, but it carved its name in history with fire, courage, and resilience. That, dear viewers, is something worth remembering. If you enjoyed this ride through history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to ZK Auto Reviews, and leave a comment below. Have you seen an M3 Lee in person? Got a favorite tank you'd love us to explore? Let us know. Your feedback drives this channel forward. Until next time, keep your engines running and your stories rolling.